about what's needed to move this work forward. So we hope that throughout this discussion, you're going to be putting things in the chat, ideas, feedback, questions you have, and we'll have plenty of time to engage on that. So before we kind of dive in, I'm going to hand it to Stacy to give us a land acknowledgement and technology acknowledgement.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here today for this, what I know is going to be an amazing and inspiring conversation with pilot participants. Thank you for taking a moment to acknowledge the Native legacy of the land we all occupy. Income Movement is located in Portland, Oregon, and we're actually in the middle of our strategic planning. So every member of our team is in Portland right now. So we are currently sitting on the traditional village sites of the Clackamas, Cowlitz, Cayuse, Umatilla, and Walla Walla tribes. Some of our team members are often located in other places, but today we're here together. We want to make sure that we take some time to acknowledge the privilege that we're all experiencing with the land that we are currently occupying, and that this has been built upon a history of violent colonizations. We're still seeing the impacts of that today. If you don't know what land you occupy, somebody amazing on this team is dropping that link in the chat right now, which is a really cool tool for you to be able to really look anywhere across the globe to see indigenous lands, and in particular in the US. We also want to recognize that land acknowledgements really are one small part of disrupting colonial structures. Action is equally important. There's some great organizations out there, including the Native American Rights Fund, that does work in supporting local, regional, and national work to support Native American rights and continuing to fight for autonomy and enforcing of the treaties and all of the things and agreements that we're supposed to actually be enforcing collectively. We also want to take a moment to talk about technology. Right now, we're using a lot of technology to make this meeting possible. But we also want to recognize that many Native communities and communities of color all across the country, having access to these technologies is difficult. We also want to acknowledge that they are destructive to the earth, and technologies like AI. There's a lot of AI note takers. We often minimize the number of note takers in here, just recognizing that both the active and passive ways we're using AI in our day-to-day lives are compounding the impact of kind of destructive nature of those technologies. So thank you for taking a few minutes here to think collectively, to hold space collectively, to acknowledge and recognize both the technology and Native legacies that we are participating in. If you have a moment to put, when people introduce themselves, they put their pronouns and their favorite desserts into the chat. But we are going to be doing audience Q&As, and if you are able to add your pronouns, if they aren't currently there, to the little square that is in your box. There's some 3 dots up in the right corner. You can rename yourself, putting those there just to make sure that we're thoughtful if we call on you. If you need any additional support, closed captions should be enacted. If there's other accessibility needs, let us know in the chat. We'll do our best to accommodate. And I think with no further ado, I'm going to pass it back over to Jordan to do a little bit of setting of our day together.
Thanks, Stacy. Appreciate it. I am really excited to welcome you to our second to last Income Movement Summer Series. We started this work together, really thinking about our framework for action and the pieces and critical components that are necessary to build the movement for basic income. And Central to that was grassroots power building, really centering communities most impacted in both the leadership and the advancement of the movement for basic income. And in that first session we had together, Erica shared really the vision for a pilot participant union as a cornerstone of both authentic power building and power shifting in our movement. Today, now a couple of months later, we're going to hear from key leaders in that work on what has been happening, the vision of how this will materialize, and really the infrastructure that's being built to support this work in the long term. So, with that, I want to hand it over to Lauren Dalbert, who's really one of the key organizing members in this, who's going to take us through the vision and some background on the organizing committee that is helping to shape this work. So, Lauren, I'll hand it to you.
Thank you, Jordan. So I'm one of 19 participants who make up the organizing committee that is basically designing the union for basic income pilot participants. Majority of us are former basic income pilot participants who are looking for ways to be active in this movement for federal basic income policy. And what we're really focusing on is the fact that, there's been like 140 pilots across the country, close to 40,000 pilot participants. And that's a lot of untapped people power that is our goal and our job to basically create the infrastructure to support the organization and the organizing and the synchronizing of this almost 40,000 people across the country to basically be our national narrative network, to be our national advocacy network, and to build a community that basically breaks the boundaries across the state so that we are able to organize and synchronize across time zones so that we develop what I like to call wieldable people power. And to do that, we're going to be representing our needs and our wants in the basic income movement to get involved in this policy work. And just to show a representation of the folks who are a part of this process, if you are a part of the organizing committee, please raise your hand right now so that we can acknowledge you and the work that you're doing in this space. So we have folks, as you can see, as the hands are popping up in 7 states across the country. We've been meeting 1 hour weekly since August. Yes, I'm pretty sure it started in August. And one of the very cool things about this organizing committee was, Income Movement had a choice where they could have provided us with stipends to be able to do this work, but they did something that was really awesome, and they created another basic income pilot for us to be able to be compensated while we do this work. And one of the benefits of that is that we don't have to pay taxes on this because it's a gift. And so that is kind of the makeup of the organizing committee. We started, and I met most of the folks in this space at the big conference in June. And some of the things that I have seen in just a very short time period is folks stepping into their living expertise, because that's something that I really stress in doing this work as just a community member who is trying to figure out how to be a part of this movement, is that primarily the main thing that I bring into this space is my lived expertise. And not just from the perspective of my poverty story, but also from the perspective of the ideas and the visions and the strategies that I see for how we can make that a reality. And so let's go to the next slide. and we'll take a look at our overall approach to the work that we've been doing. And since big, we've primarily been working in three main areas, which are visioning, one, to kind of see where our level of vision is right now, but also having practices that allow us to raise our level of vision for what's possible and what we are capable of doing. The next area is our hopes for the union. What do we hope this union is capable of manifesting in the world that doesn't already exist? And then the third portion is our own personal goals, skills that we would like to level up, and then also needs in the work so that we can begin to fill in the gaps in the work. And so we've been exploring things like our values and missions, a little bit of initial goals, but that's going to take a little while because we really need to be grounded in our sense of community and inclusion first. And then out of that will come our sense of power and autonomy. And then out of that will really come our goals. So we still have some time to spend together, basically building our relationships and developing that sense of community and building that sense of community power and autonomy so that the solutions and ideas, insights and recommendations that we're bringing forth aren't seeds that were planted by someone else. These are things that are organically coming out of the work and out of the conversations that we're having. So we're also looking at prioritizing projects that will help us reach our goals. What is the role of the union in this movement? And primarily, I see the role of the union in this movement is pretty much the same role that the community played here in Contra Costa County, where we had amazing GI researchers, we had amazing policy folks who understood the landscape of Contra Costa County, but the piece that was missing was the community and the people power. And once we were able to bring that third leg and basically build a stool that could stand up on its own, we were able to get a win, a policy win here in Contra Costa County. And so I see that this work at the national level is basically the same thing. And in this guaranteed income space, we have amazing researchers, we have amazing pilot administrators, we have folks who understand policy, but what's missing is the people power to give this movement teeth. And so that's where I see the role of the union in this movement. But we're also exploring culture and community and what does that look like as we build it organically in this space. Then the other thing is I talk about power and autonomy. I don't want to be limited in the funding space and always having to ask folks for money. Once we step into our power and autonomy, we will also source ideas that will allow us to become a self-sustaining union. Then we're exploring our decision-making processes and also conflict transformation skills. And then the structure of the organization. What does the organization look like? Really creating a framework, a national framework that can then be contextualized at the local level so that each individual, we call them chapters or constituencies, will be able to take ownership of their implementation of what the union looks like in their locales. And so that's kind of where we are right now. I'm really enjoying the process of watching folks level up and move out of that, participant mindset and into that designer mindset, that program designer mindset, but also that advocacy mindset of just really getting ready to become part of something that's organized. Because if we look at what's happening internationally, Generation Z, they wilding out all over the place right now. They are overthrowing governments. And that is a power that we need to build the infrastructure right now to empower these folks because they're wondering, how can I be involved? What can I do? And that is also a part of this union, is to create that infrastructure that then we can channel all of that energy before we get to the burn it all down stage. We can channel all of that energy. And so, yeah, that's all I've got for right now. And I will pass it back to, who is it going back to now?
I think it's going back to Erica, but we can't hear you, Erica. You might need to check your mic.
We can now.
I think you can now. We're sharing a little speaker thing here at the desk. But thank you, Lauren, for explaining what the organizing committee for the Union Basic Income participants is, how we're approaching the work, and basically kind of digging deep into, you know, what resonates with the group as we do this work. But I'm just going to do like a brief timeline of the work as we move towards launching it and inviting more pilot participants to be a part of this work. So like Lauren said, we kicked off things in August, and into September, we focused a lot. We pulled some of the community agreements from the big conference when we had the breakout session that was just for pilot participants. So using that framing, we did some visioning for like the culture and what we want the union to be. And then in October, we spent some time really digging into like the frameworks of the movement, the different pillars, and kind of like how things flow and function, and how we'll actually integrate the work of the union into these different pillars of movement work. As we move into September, we'll speak more about the goals and priorities for the next coming year and years after for the union's work, and then setting some missions and values that will guide the work of the union, and obviously take a little holiday break for the December kind of holiday season. And then come back in January, setting just some structure, thinking about funding and the decision-making process as we open things up to a larger group, hopefully in January or February. Yes, that's kind of the timeline. And I think now we'll actually move into a panel conversation with a few of the organizing committee members who have joined us here today. So I'd like to introduce Mark Gaskin, Justine Diaz, and Lauren Delbert, who will kind of be answering a few questions for us before we open it to an audience Q&A. So I'll actually start with Mark Gaskin. So Mark is a 62-year-old unhoused man whose main focus for the last 2+ years has been taking care of his 82-year-old aunt. You can learn more about his story from his NPR interview on his journey into caregiving work. So thank you, Mark, for joining us here today. We also are joined by Justine, is it Daros? Diaz? I have Diaz, but Daros is, I didn't mean to get your last name wrong.
My married name is Daros.
Okay.
My maiden name is Diaz, so either or is okay.
All right, cool. So Justine was part of the Bridge Project while living in New York. She's currently living in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, with her husband and 2 children. So thank you, Justine, for joining us. I forgot to mention that Mark was part of the Denver Basic Income Project. And last but certainly not least, we have Lauren Delbert, who is a community-driven economic mobility practitioner and lived experience strategist. He specializes in co-designing policies and programs that center the power and autonomy of communities that have faced historic disinvestment, from designing and implementing the East Contra Costa Mobility Labs initiative to creating the Coco Go Big Guaranteed Income Pilot and campaign. Lauren transforms living expertise into systems level solutions that drive positive community transformation. And Lauren also serves as a co-chair for the California GICP Policy Working Group. So thank you all for being here and, coming to share some of your experience and story with everyone here. So during the panel discussion, all the questions are
they're served to all of you. So if everyone could just, you know, take some time to think about the questions that come up and share what comes up for you. So the first question we have here is, while participating in your pilot, what made you want to be an advocate for basic income? And I'll let y'all decide who wants to kick it off.
I guess I'll I'll start. So yeah, so I was part of the Bridge Project after my son was born in 2020. So I think it was like 2021. And I just, it was like a big help. You know, it was a really difficult time. And, you know, I was still employed. I was one of those like essential workers. So I still had to go in, but just business itself and everything was just dying down. So I just felt, you know, being part of this program and just being afforded the opportunity and all of that, like it's something that everyone should have, you know, that everyone should be granted at least, you know, because, you know, even if you work a job and, you know, you make a certain amount, like it's just, you know, help is always wanted and given. So I'm just, you know, a big advocate to just sort of help the individual and overall help society with programs like this.
Hello, everybody. For me, I had actually had just become homeless when Denver Basic Income reached out. And it was because I was at my wit's end, to the point of the depression and literally suicidal at that time when I got involved with Denver Basic Income. And for me, when I got involved with them, it actually rekindled a spirit of new hope, that I have not allowed that fire since then, in 2022, to die down. I have been actively involved with everything that Denver Basic Income has done, from doing rallies to dinners and just community speaking, because I seen what they did for me. And the more I got to know the people that were involved, not just the administrators, not just the staff, but the contributors, local officials, and hearing them speak and being committed to bringing about a change inspired me to become more active. Even today, I got a call from Mark Donovan, who's in charge of Denver Basic Income. And as soon as I'm done with this meeting, I have 2 more meetings I have to go to on the other side of town, where I will be speaking with a councilman who has been a supporter of Denver Basic Income, as well as an organization leader who has been funding Denver Basic Income. And we will be speaking about this meeting. We will be speaking about the union. And so that's where I have come into the advocacy part of it. Is it has inspired me to be more involved with not just my little circle, but to be it has inspired me to be statewide. And I truly believe that if we do this right, we can take this and make it a global thing, to where we are the example of what a community should be like, what a community should be caring about. Yes, I take care of my 82-year-old aunt, and I love that dearly. I love helping her out. And through Denver Basic Income and the funding that they gave me, they helped me provide when she was in need and about to be evicted. So it was, this whole program has really not only affected me, but it has affected family members because of what I've been able to do and what I've learned through it. And I'm gonna cut it off, otherwise I'll talk forever.
Hello, guys. My name is Ebony Tillman, and I'm part of the Phila Housing Plus program. It started off as me signing up for Philadelphia Housing Authority waiting list to get a home. I've been on there for 11 years, and out of 200 participants that's on the waiting list, I was one of the ones selected for the Housing Plus program, where they gave you a certain amount towards your rent. And I was working at the time when I first got it, but then when I got laid off from my job, I was like in distress about what I'm going to do next, as far as, how I'm going to help pay my rent. And, they let me know, you lost your job. We'll pay your rent minus $50. And I was so grateful, I don't have, financial support from, family or whatever. So to hear that this program helped me, I was able to get back in school and do what I need to do to to hopefully get a job. I'm going to Community College of Philadelphia, and my goal is to be a registered nurse. So yes, I'm so grateful for this program, and definitely would like to learn more about how I can advocate in the future.
All right, thank you, Ebony. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for sharing that, Ebony. And the thing that made me become an advocate for basic income wasn't actually me. I mentioned how in Contra Costa County we had an amazing GI researcher and an amazing policy strategist here in the county. And that policy strategist reached out to the program that I was managing at the time, which was a program. It was community designed and community driven economic mobility initiative. And we had started to make a name for ourselves in the county as a group of community folks who were exploring measurable and sustainable solutions to poverty, but also looking to change the narratives around social and economic mobility. And so she reached out to us to see if we'd be interested in learning about something called basic income. And so we were introduced to some folks at Community Financial Resources who explained to us what basic income or guaranteed income is. And I got it instantly as a twice formerly unhoused disabled veteran who was unhoused until I started receiving a federal guaranteed income in the form of VA disability. And that was in late in December 2018. And it was less than $1,000 a month, but that instantly removed me from being unhoused and started me along the pathway of really working on my mental health and moving into a space of mental wellness. And, during that process, I thought that I was just trying to address military trauma, but I realized through exploration that I was also dealing with the transgenerational trauma of being born a descendant of American slaves. And that basic income even allowed me the space to be able to transcend that very deep trauma. And so once I saw that impact that basic income had on me personally, I knew that I had to play a role in making this a reality for everyone. And so I basically dove headfirst into learning everything I could about basic income, and was introduced to the economic security project and the work they were doing, and also income movement and the work they were doing. And I will just say unapologetically that I am a fanboy of income movement, because everything that I did was based off of stuff I learned from them. And you know, as far as the 4 pillars of the movement. And I was like, yeah, that's cool, but community is just in this one lane and that ain't gonna work for me. We're gonna knock that pillar over, make it the foundation for all 3 of the other pillars of this work. And then I said, well, if we're going to do that, then we probably need to know more about basic income. So maybe we could do a pilot. And so I started that work to get the community ready to do our own community design and implemented GI pilot, not for the purpose of proving the efficacy of GI. It was purely for the purpose of being able to see through the lens of practitioners so that we could come with our own insights and our own recommendations into these policy conversations. And a lot of times policy is written without a really good view of the bottom of our economy. But most of the folks in our community have very good views, because most of us have spent most of our life in the bottom quintile of our economy. And that is our expertise. And that is another reason why I want to help others become advocates like Mark. Watching Mark progress to where he talked about having concerns about being an advocate, and now he's basically saying there's no stopping him from being an advocate. Watching that progress take place, and building the infrastructure for as many of those 40,000 pilot participants who want to take that journey, to have that infrastructure in place for them to do that. And I will pause there, because like Mark, I will go and we'll be over time.
All right, thank you, Justine, Mark, Lauren, Ebony, for sharing what inspired you to be advocates for basic income, and even being a little bit vulnerable in what you shared with us. So thank you all for that. Our next question is, so what did your journey into advocacy actually look like? Like, how did that happen? And Mark, do you think you could kick off that one for us?
Yeah, for me, it was the first time I ever attended a DBIP rally. On the spot, I was asked to share my story. I had nothing prepared, and I believe that speaking from the heart, I didn't have to prepare anything, because this was something that I was living. This was something that I was going through at the time, and being able to share with the hundreds of people that were at the steps of the Capitol, and willing to be vulnerable and share the fact that I was at the point of suicide when Denver Basic Income reached out to me and accepted me into this program. And so for me, that journey started there. I wasn't sure of what to do. I wasn't sure of how to do, but I knew I wanted to do. And then when the funding for Denver Basic ended, they didn't kick me out. They didn't throw me to the side and just leave me alone. You know, they kept me involved with everything that was going on. And so when I was invited to go to the big conference, that was just mind blowing for me. Never having traveled to DC and always wanting to visit our nation's capital. it let me know that people truly did care. And even though I may not be living in a traditional home, I still live in my tent that I was able to purchase because of the funding that was given to me. I'm still able to take care of my aunt. Um, but being there at that conference and seeing people from across the nation told me that this was just the start of something greater than me. And being part of that, being invited to be part of that, only kindles the fire. Every time we have these meetings, and I look at all the different nationalities, I look at all the different places that people are coming in from, lets me know that this is something that not just me and not just Denver, but people around this nation are interested in. And so the journey has, it's been rough, uh, because I'm the type of person that I just want to go out there and I just want to run with it. Uh, Sometimes, you have to sit back, you have to learn the process, you have to learn the steps. And that's always been hard for me, is to just sit back. I see it, I see something that needs to be done. I want to get it done. I want to get out there. I want people to be aware of this. And so I started, I mean, again, not really uh, knowing the political aspect of it, but I started speaking at my city council meetings. I started attending different events just to hear what was going on and speak on what was going on. So for me, this journey is, I now feel that I have more support and I have more direction because of the people that are involved. Um, Lauren, when I met Lauren in DC, I told him then he was somebody that I needed to know. Listening to Stacy, listening to Chelsea at the big event. These are people that I knew I wanted to get to know because they have what I'm looking for. They have the knowledge of how to deal with the political aspect. They have the experience of walking this journey that I want to be on. I want people to know that, and like Lauren had said, the young people need to know that if they don't grab hold of this now, then their future is going to look even grimmer because they're not going to have that support. If they don't have that direction, if they don't have the guidance of people who have walked that walk, giving them the direction, because we don't want our nation, we don't want our country to run into chaos. But we want the change to come about because people have spoken and they have decided that this is something that we want. And again, I'll cut it off, otherwise I'll keep going.
All right, thank you, Mark. I can really feel all the heart you have for the work you're doing in this movement, so thank you. Justine, do you want to share a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so I'm still new to the advocacy thing, so I'm learning with everyone. And yeah, no, I mean, just going through, being like, again, when I was a new parent and just like unexpected costs and all of that, and having that opportunity, like it really made me like think that, for a lot of new parents and for children, like just to have that stress relief, like will help, like future generations and help people. And just like hearing Mark's story, like everyone that's been part of these pilots and stuff, just like various backgrounds, a lot of it, it's all like pain, struggle, all of this. And, you know, the higher ups, like people, that we voted in, they don't hear these stories. They don't live this life. So they're like blinded. So we really do need to step up and speak and have our stories heard, and not have like, have these people have a blind eye to everything that's going on and stuff. So, towards the end of my pilot program, when, some like newspapers and stuff, like wanted sort of like an insight of like what was going on, what is this new concept, I did have the opportunity to speak up about it, because there was a lot of like negativity like brought about when it came to programs like this. And that's not what this is. This is very positive. This is something that helps people. And I'll just say it again, like overall, like this is something that will help society thrive. Because, there's so much pain, there's so much struggle going on right now. So that's why I'm very passionate about being an advocate.
Thank you, Justine. Lauren, anything you want to add? I know you touched on a little bit about your journey, but if there's anything else you wanted to share about that.
Yeah, I think my journey into advocacy really highlights the importance of funding advocacy work, because none of the work that we did would have happened if it wasn't for the strong funding collaboratives here in Contra Costa County and the work of the East Contra Costa Community Alliance, ECA, and reaching out to get those funds so that we could provide the stipends for the community members to attend the Contra Costa County's Policy Institute. And so the East Contra Costa County Alliance, they had two policy priorities for 2025, and they fell under basic needs and under income stability. And ECHA is made up of 27 organizations in East Contra Costa County, and they're all providing different services throughout East Contra Costa County, which is very much a resource desert. And so we were brought into ECHA, and they basically made us a member of ECHA. And then we were able to bring a lot of our community members into this Policy Institute, which was made up of people from a lot of different organizations like St. Vincent de Paul and First Five and a lot of other organizations, to basically bring the people power to the advocacy work and to the campaigns. And so that is the thing I think that really stands out about my journey into advocacy, is that I was lucky enough to be a manager of a program that was operating in the deep end of the spectrum of community engagement to ownership, which meant that the foundation, with a little encouragement and some pushing back to their pushback, that basically we, the community, that we forced them to defer to us, the community, in the work that we did. And having that experience of being able to, as a community, decide what was going to happen with $100,000, that was huge. We had $50,000 for narrative change, and we had another $50,000 for community service project. And that $50,000 went to do our guaranteed income pilot for our community. Now, I had to advocate inside of my foundation, because when I said to my supervisor that we wanted to do basic income, it was like, no, Lauren, the funder doesn't want you to just give money away. And then went to his boss, which is the CEO and president, and we want to do guaranteed income. And no, Lauren, you should just be helping folks level up their skills so they can get better jobs. But I had done my preparation, I knew that this was supposed to be community designed and community implemented. And so that was my response to them was, this is supposed to be community designed and community implemented, and this is what the community wants. Even our funder had some concerns about us doing harm to folks' benefits. Well, how did I alleviate those concerns? I did my homework, spent a lot of time on income movement site, spent a lot of time on the GICP site, learning everything I could about basic income so that I could answer their questions. And obviously we did everything satisfactorily because we were able to implement that pilot, run a successful campaign, and secure $4.25 million in basic income funding. And this was public funding. This wasn't ARPA funding. This was highly contested funding in the county. And so that's kind of like my story of how I got into advocacy. But one thing that got me to where I am now on the national level was at the first big conference we went to in Chicago. Shafika Hashash whispered in my ear that I was on a short list of folks that they had as who would become national champions for GI. And here I am. Okay, so that's my advocacy story.
Wild story, man. I mean, such different stories from all three of you, but it's so nice, it's the same conclusion from everyone. Like, basic income is something our communities need, it's something that the nation needs. So really appreciate y'all sharing about your journey. We're going to move a little bit more into the actual union piece here, and just wondering from each of you, what is your hope or vision for what the union will be? And maybe we'll have Justine kick it off.
So my hope for the union is that a lot of people want to join, and our voices can grow, and we can just like be out there and push this, and just overall just like let the people be heard, like that in a nutshell. Yeah, just support.
Well, for me,
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
what I would like to see is I would like the participants that the pilot participants, when they see the impact that the small, I mean, like Lauren said, there's like 20 of us that are setting the groundwork for this union. And I think when they see the impact that 19 people have on this nation, that they have a desire to join until we are 40,000 plus across this nation. I have shared it before that when you have that many voices across this nation, then our elected officials have no choice but to listen to the people that are speaking. And I believe that each and every one of us need to speak up and speak out. And if our elected officials that are in office right now don't want to hear us, then on November 4th, we get somebody in that office that's wanting to hear us, that's willing to listen to us. We may not bring about change on November 4th, but I think we can have an impact that says, this is a group of people that need to be reckoned with. This is a group of people that are not going away. And I believe that as a union, if we are strong enough and we are unified in one voice, we can bring about that change.
Thank you, Mark. Lauren, any hopes or visions for the union?
Yes, I see the vision, the union is like that, like I mentioned earlier, that third leg of the stool. You got, you know, in this basic income space at the national level, we've got a ton of great researchers, and they've done an amazing body of work. We've got at least 140 pilot administrators. And those are, and then we've got all of our policy folks in the space, and those are like the two legs that are not quite holding up this platform that we need. And so the union, I see it as the third leg that will hold up the stool and create this platform upon which we can do this work. And one of the main things that I see, and I'm really glad that income movement named it a union, because I see our role as building enough people power, wieldable people power, that it will allow us to force folks to the table to talk about something that we always talk around, which is income or wealth redistribution, or I like to use the word wealth recirculation, because our society is ill because our economy is too far out of balance. If in a body, if a body gets too far, if the electrolytes get too far out of balance, then stuff stops working. The brain will shut down. A matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that's how they kill folks with a lethal injection, is a whole bunch of electrolytes that stops the lung and the heart from working. So if we look at that on a societal scale, where the lifeblood of our economy is so far out of balance because we, the many, over the last few decades have allowed the few to take our share of the economy. And they've taken it and now they're weaponizing it against us. And that's what a sick society looks like. You want to know what the heart and the body looks like in society? Well, they're shutting down the government, and they're basically trying to squeeze out and basically shut down different parts and different organizations in the government, and sucking out even more of the wealth and causing a greater imbalance. And until we do something to start to recirculate the wealth back into our economy, we'll forever be making programs that are trying to treat the symptoms instead of curing the actual disease, which is us, the many, forcing the few to come to our table and give us and not give us, but basically we have to get our share of the economy back. And because when we get the money, we spend it, we recirculate it, and we keep the economy healthy. But we are allowing folks who have a hoarding disorder to basically suck all of the wealth out of our economy. So that's why Gen Z is wilding out all over the place, because there's no wealth for them in the economy. And so that's what I see the vision of this union, is being a big ass stick that can basically force them to the table so that we can tell them how much is enough. Because in negotiations and collective bargaining and all that stuff, their first offer is not going to be enough. We have to be able to have the power to say, this is what we say is enough, and this is what we demand. And so that's what I see for the vision of this union. It's not so much about asking, it's about telling.
Thank you, Lauren. We're all laughing at Chelsea's comment. But I've had a lot of fun working with the organizing committee, Lauren, Mark, Justine, and everyone here, and excited to build that big stick to help them along the way. Um, so when you all think about the union, like what the union can actually do for the basic income community, is there anything that comes up for you, like the idea of accelerating timelines or filling gaps? I think Lauren kind of brought up the idea of like filling this gap with the stool metaphor. But when you think of the actual work that will happen with the union, is there anything that comes up that you think will happen for the basic income community through that work? And I think I'll hand it to Mark this time.
Personally, I see it as an opportunity for me to start, like Lauren said, start pushing the agenda of not asking to come to the table, but inviting them to be at my table. As a union, as the collective whole, I see us as becoming the dominant factor. I see us being the ones that will truly be setting that bar. And that's what I'd like to see. Being invited to, like the meetings I have after this one, to meet with these people who actually are holding that key. It allows me the opportunity to sit up there and get one step closer to being the one who sits up there and says, okay, well, I need you to, you want to come to my table, you want a seat at my table, because I have 40,000 plus people that are joining with me. And so that's where I see this union actually having the power, is being able to sit up there and say, okay, you want to come to my table. What are you willing to do for us so that we want you at our table, instead of it being reversed, where I have to plead, I have to beg them to sit at their table. And in like Lauren said, 9 times out of 10, if I'm able to get the crumbs or the scraps that fall from their plate, they're okay with that. I'm not okay with that anymore. I want to be the one that is sitting at the table and I have the steak.
So many like very powerful metaphors and like visuals coming from you guys. I just love it. Justine, do you have any thoughts about what we might do in our work with the union?
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly with Mark. Yeah, like overall, I feel like it's just, it will just clarify things. The union will, just sort of help with like the understandings of like what comes next, and sort of, again, as always, the collective, the voice of this. And yeah, overall, like it's something that just, needs to happen. Like we need people and to unify and just, come together.
Yeah, that resounding unified voice for sure. And Lauren, anything for you?
Yeah, like what Justine and Mark talked about, it's really the union is a space to build the people power and that infrastructure that is powerful by itself, but it's also, going back to the last summer series meeting, which was all about coalition building. This union will become part of a much larger coalition, a grassroots coalition that really has the opportunity to create a new social contract in our country. We have a legitimate opportunity to really make some significant change. I don't spend too much time in our media because most of it is outside of my ability to influence. So I spend most of my time focusing on stuff that I can't influence. But I do know that that there is a solidarity right now of a very small group of people who have vast amounts of resources, but their resources are finite. So, first of all, Chelsea, I always have this saying, my job is to poke the bear. So I'm glad you made that statement. But their resources are finite. And so if we are strategic in what we are doing, we can get what we want out of this time of chaos. But we have to be strategic about it. And, you know, despair, you have to honor despair. You know, we're in heavy times, and a lot of us don't have the experience of dealing with America's heaviness. But a lot of us, many of us who do, we're activated. We've got agency Mark sleeping in a tent, but he's talking about doing this work. I'm dealing with housing insecurity, but and I'm still doing this work because I'm not, wallowing in the depths of despair anymore. I've done that several times, and the only thing down there was me. So really, the try to accelerate that space, moving out of that space of disempowerment and start moving into the space of let's figure this work out together, because our country fought a war, a revolution to free itself from aristocracy and governments based on bloodlines. But we're headed directly into an age of digital feudalism because our tax codes have gone straight oligarch, and the wealthy don't pay their fair share of taxes, which means that they will just pass that wealth down to their children, and the wealth will stay in their bloodlines. So that is what we are fighting against right now. And I'm done being, polite about this work. This is, we're going to build a movement that, as far as I'm concerned, if we need to vilify the wealthy, then that's the job. But, ultimately, I don't know what the work's going to look like, but we will figure it out as we go along.
All right, thank you so much, Lauren, Mark, Justine. This conversation has been your all's vulnerability, your passion for the movement, the power I can sense from you guys. Honestly, it kind of makes me feel powerful in this moment, just being part of this movement with you all. And before we hop into the audience Q&A, Jordan, if you want to unpin us for and then I believe a lot of the organizing committee members, more of them have joined. So if people want to raise their hand again, and if we could just recognize again all of the members of the organizing committee who are meeting weekly and putting all of this effort in to make sure that there's a space for the voice of lived experience. I see Columbina.
Physically doing it. Oh, thank you, Columbina.
I don't know where that hand is. I'm looking for that hand.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
I see Columbina, Shanarie, Faye. Just want to recognize you all one more time before we hop into this audience Q&A, which I'll let Stacy help guide us through that.
Well, I think a good transition, and this is, I think this is where we can open it up to everybody that's on the organizing committee. The panelists that we just had a lovely conversation with, as well as anybody else that is part of the kind of designing of this union, this pilot participant union. I'm curious to understand what we have a lot of community members here and a lot of folks who are here to learn more. What do you hope, or what do you want from this community to support the work that you're doing? Like, what comes to mind for you as most important that the folks who've been part of this time here could take away what's your ask of them? And if you want to share, maybe raise your hand, and then we'll just kind of go down in order of folks who have something that they want to share around that. Mark, what do you kick us off?
For me, what I would like the people to see is their contribution did not fall on rocks. Okay. Their contribution and their continued participation in this organization is falling on fertile ground. Yeah, you might have a few weeds that are out there that are trying to choke the life out of this movement, but there are more people who have done positive because of their involvement than there are those that have done negatively with the contributions that have been given to us. I tell people all the time, I could have easily taken the funds that was given to me and been in a house, but then my aunt would be homeless. And I would rather deal with what I'm dealing with because I'm okay living in my tent. I mean, I have all the things, all the necessities that I need. I have my own generator, solar powered generator. I have my own propane heater, my own propane cooktop. So I have the things that I need, and it's because people gave. And so this union is the next step, is the next phase in making this something that our political figures get behind. Because even though you may see, and of course the media is going to tell the stories of the negative and not the positive, for the most part. Since I've been involved in this program, my story has been in the Denver Post. My story has been recorded through NPR. My story has gone viral in some places where they've grabbed the positiveness of this. And a lot of things or a lot of places that it was actually told, I didn't even know until Stacy had shared it with me when she Googled me, and she told me, hey, your story was here and here, and I sat up there and I had never ever looked myself up. And so I was amazed at how big of an impact my story, a nobody who lives in no place, was able to affect people to where StoryCorps has recorded my story and it has been archived. So future generations will be able to go back and listen to this story of how somebody who was unhoused was able to take care of his aunt because of organizations like this. And we want it to be something that affects people to where they want to give.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Anybody else from the organizing committee? We've got, you all are doing amazing work, and we've been talking a little bit more about like the role that you guys are envisioning the union having more broadly within, the like broader political context, but also within the movement. There's, over the course of this conversation, there's been over 75 or 80 people who have been part of this conversation. What do you want from them? What's your ask to help support you and your co-conspirators in this work? What do you feel is most critical right now for people within the movement to be doing to support your work? Any other thoughts from folks across the organizing committee?
Well, I mean, I just want to say that, like, when you really think about it, we're like in one of like the richest country, if not, that's what I think they like to say. We're in the richest country, and it's just like horrible, like with record homelessness and hunger and just like all the things that are going on. Like how we have to feel like, oh, are we doing something wrong asking for like money so we could live? Like they should be wanting to empower society and us. Like we're the people. So I have to say, like, I just, this is something that no one should like feel any shame or like awkward or weird about. Like this is something that as a US citizen we should be entitled to, like a home, food, like, these people making a ridiculous amount of money. Like right now, I feel like it's just a cash grab, like in the US government, like the way that they cut all these programs and the reason and how they want to like cut health insurance and like it's just so disgusting. So we really like this is a very critical time for all of us to come together and really like just say, hey, listen, it's true. Like what Lauren said, this is very unhealthy. We're living in a very unhealthy economy and, and everything's just falling apart. Crime is high because it's like, when people are hungry and desperate, what happens, and you're trying to stay on track, it's just, it's such a bad time in such a wealthy country, so like, yeah, we really, like, this is something that we're entitled to. This is, living without fear, living without, the pain, you know. So I just have to say that.
Thank you, Justine, for sure. Faye, you have your hand up.
Hi, everyone. So I'm having a little conversation with people about, vilifying the rich and so forth. I I would like to invite everybody to join me sometime in a money exploration where we try to reimagine how money could work. And what I think is happening is that some people have repeatedly gone to the government and said, we want to redesign the money. We want it to work a certain way. And of course, they want it to work well for them, but not for other people. So through this process of changing the behavior of money itself through legislation, which we the people have not been invited to, they've changed the game so that it benefits in some people, or so it seems. But what's going to happen is this total failure, right, of our society, which will not be beneficial to anybody. So I think what I try to do is invite people to look at the money more directly and say, can we redesign this money so that it actually works to support everybody rather than harming everybody? And I think that that's something that would be valuable. And I'm part of the Union of Basic Income Pilots as well, pilot participants as well. And hopefully that'll be something that can be, that people can access through our movement.
Awesome. Thank you, Faye. And Myra, we're going to have you kind of finish this out. What are you hoping that this community, kind of leaves this conversation with the folks that are already invested and believe in basic income, but what are you hoping they do to support the work that you're a part of with the other organizers of the union? Myra, are you able to hear? I know you're doing your headphones.
Yeah, I am like struggling here. I'm sorry. Did you say something to me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, what did you want to share? Your hand is up. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was just having a conversation with someone here in my office. I know I forgot I have my fancy background tile, and I was hoping you guys could see. I work for a food pantry. My office is literally the food pantry, and we literally are like stretched thin here. Like bad. Like I've never seen it this low before. And usually when it does get low like this, I know that, it's okay. I can just order food from Food Share and stock the shelves. And right now, Food Share has absolutely nothing. I go on their site all the time to try to order food. There's absolutely nothing. We attend meetings all the time. One of our directors of advocacy just attended a meeting with a lot of people in, higher places. And the first thing they wanted to talk about was, well, let's get together and create a resource guide. And we're like, what? A resource guide. So a resource guide's for people to know where the resources are. And I'm going, okay, great. Now what happens when they get this good old resource guide and they come see people like me in a pantry that has nothing? What do? They don't, I don't have the resource right now. So basic income is basically what is needed, because right now the people that the agencies and the resources are no longer reliable, because now we're having a hard stop. Our answer to that is legislatively, that's where you have to fight. That is the biggest answer to any solution as of right now, is making sure that our leaders are well aware of what's happening and demanding that they do something for their constituents. Stop thinking about themselves and what's not going to anger their fellow, coworkers or whatever they are to them, their colleagues, but to really, really, really pay attention to what's happening with your constituents, because this government shutdown is getting nasty and people are about to start feeling it. We're getting nervous because now they're talking about the SNAP benefits being cut, with already being affected, and people are going to begin to panic.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And people are trying to figure out what to do. Do we find people to donate more? And I'm like, yes, all of that stuff is wonderful, but it comes to an end eventually. The biggest thing we have to do is we have to act legislatively, which a lot of people don't like to do because they don't understand the process. And I get it. I've been an advocate for a long time, and I still sometimes don't understand the process because it can be long and it can be disappointing and it can be overwhelming and it can be intimidating. But they have to understand that we're coming to them with a solution. We're asking you to do something, but we're not asking it for no reason. We're asking because we see a problem. And when there's a crisis, that's the best time to come with solutions. We are in crisis mode. We're past prevention. Right now, we are in the middle of crisis. What better way than to say, you know what, let's start supporting people so that they can help support themselves, and watch how those people who support themselves support others who are in need. They need to hear that. So we need everyone to understand coming up with solutions about resources and all that is wonderful, but legislatively is going to be our biggest impact.
Awesome. Thank you, Myra. When I hear what you're speaking to, like reading between the lines, so much of what you're speaking to is empowering you and all of the rest of the organizers and all the new union members that are going to join once this launches, in being able to advocate, to speak directly to power, to electeds. And that takes time and resources, and one thing that I think is really important here, is for us all as members of this movement to be thinking about, do we want, for, as we have these kind of key moments in our culture and society where the need is significant, right? We're in this big kind of crisis mode. Do we think that the voices of those who have experienced both the negative sides of what's happening and those who have experience of basic income, do we think their voices are important? And if their voices are important, how do we make sure that we are not building on this moment, building on the backs of free labor? And how do we make sure that we are compensating and have the resources for folks like you, Myra, and everybody else who's spoken today to have to take the time off that is necessary from a shift to be able to go down and give testimony, right? These things are real things, and historically, generally, a lot of the time, systems change like this is built on the backs of volunteers. But we also know that what we're trying to do is something different. So how can we as a movement function differently? So I just want to kind of plant that seed, and I see that Shamaria has dropped her own thoughts. I want everyone to walk away feeling empowered after this time together, which I think we all do. And I also want us to think about how reform within a system requires addressing the oppressor head on. We can't fault ourselves for the class we are born in. So it might be easy to say the same for the 1%, but we can fault them for the way they're all refusing to distribute the wealth that they are withholding. As we fault them, it is not making them villains. We're coming with solutions that should be heard. Thank you for Shamari for sharing that in the chat. I want us to just finish out. Jordan, can you share your screen for just a moment with a couple of slides? We started this with a little bit of context setting in that timeline that Erica shared. We want to be very, very tactical here and practical in these last couple of minutes. The goal here for this organizing committee is to launch in January. Launching means pilot administrators, researchers, folks who have relationships and direct contact with pilot recipients, pilot participants, to be able to invite those folks, let them know about the union and give them an opportunity to join if they're interested. But the piece about this union that is really important to understand, instead of members having to pay their dues, instead of pilot participants having to pay monthly to help cover the costs of the work, we actually think that it's important to flip that, where we're actually paying members to support them in their advocacy work, treating them like the experts that they are, treating them with the kind of freedom and recognizing their own important role that they have to play. So that costs money. So Income Movement has done a lot of work in raising funds and continuing to raise funds to cover some of these, but we really think that it's important that this is a movement-wide effort. So our ask of the community is to think about what is important to you, where your priorities are, and what you think is most important for the next part of our movement. And if pilot participants are a part of that, then thinking about how you can formally support this work. So what we found as we've done this work and kind of piloting this, so to speak, in the sense of like starting to invite some pilot administrators to share the opportunity with pilot participants, we found that about somewhere around 10% of pilot participants want to move into advocacy work. If that general number holds true, then what we're talking about is potentially of that 38 to 40,000 pilot participants that are all across the country. There may be 3,000 to 4,000 people right now who would want to start to join the union and start to participate in this work. There's a significant number of folks that we know. Those kinds of numbers really do start to move needles. It starts to really help shift conversations and shift power. In order to support each union member, to pay them to be able to come to trainings, to support them if they want to attend events or host events, we're recognizing that about $1,000 a year is a base level necessary for each union member to participate in advocacy work. So if we think about those folks who want to participate, that 10%, we're asking folks to think about if 10% of your pilot participants wanted to join this work, can you help in covering for the first year of their work $1,000 for each of those folks? If you have 100 people in your pilot, that's 10 people that might want to join this. It's $10,000 to support them in the first year of the work. We do have an advocacy board. The organizing committee is kind of taking on that role in these early stages, but as they continue to develop the frameworks and the decision-making processes and all of those kinds of things, there's going to likely be some kind of advocacy board that will continue, and the costs for that are larger because they're going to be connecting and doing more work for the union. We also anticipate over time regional organizing leads to be able to make sure that really important work in different states or regions are kind of unified and coordinated within the union. And that could be as much as, a part-time job. That could be, in that kind of 30K or more. So as we do this work together, if you're inspired by, if you're excited by what you've heard here today, we're going to drop a link into the chat if it isn't already there. An opportunity for folks to be able to raise their hand and say they're interested in helping support the union and support these amazing participants as they organize themselves and design what advocacy can and should look like for them in the coming years. There's the form includes a follow-up session in a couple of weeks where you can learn more and really start to kind of learn about different opportunities. In the forum, there's also a place, there's some questions about funding, but there's also some questions about interest in supporting trainings or facilitating different kinds of sessions. There's a lot that will go into this, a lot. The vision and that the participants are coming up with includes learning how to tell their own stories, to use the tools to tell their own stories, video editing, all these different pieces that will help them be in charge of and deciding how their stories, how their voices and experiences are utilized by our movement, and how to center their voices in ways that are meaningful. There's lots of ways that you or your organization might be interested in supporting. So please do fill out if you're interested in learning more, in getting more involved in this. Please do fill out the form that's in the chat, and we'll continue to keep the community up to speed on things. Some of what the organizing committee is going to be doing is like, how do they socialize and share the opportunities with others? And so over the coming months, we'll continue to keep you all informed on opportunities, but also progress that they're making, because it's pretty amazing and inspiring, and really glad that everybody could be here today. And thank you to so many of the participants that are part of the organizing committee for being here and sharing your experiences. We are we're coming to the end of our summer series. We have one more session at the end of this month focused on narrative change. So keep that in mind. We'll send out a reminder. Since you've registered for this one, you've kind of tentatively registered for all of them. So we'll reach out to you as a reminder for that. But until then, until the next time that we're together, thank you. We hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and a good week. And we hope that spending some time together in community has made people feel a little bit more connected, a little bit more hopeful. I feel hopeful being around all these amazing folks that are organizing themselves every week. And we look forward to the next time that we can come together. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.